Welcome to Narrative Nook Audio Tales, where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Samuel was stunned. Isn't our home cozy? I would have gone home if it hadn't been because we stayed up too late revising. Exactly. There is no way our dorm is better than our home. Spencer objected right away. But my exam is just around the corner. If I stay there, I can concentrate on my studies like Stanley. Nicole used her exam as an excuse just to stay on campus. Upon hearing Nicole's words, Norah scoffed in her mind. No wonder this country bumpkin wants to stay on campus. She's worried about her academic performance. Gloria knew that Nicole was ambitious and hardworking, but she was reluctant to let Nicole go. Nicole, you're only in your junior year. You can stay on campus when you are in your senior year. Don't be too hard on yourself. Nicole had to give Gloria a reassuring smile when she noticed Gloria's worried expression. I know, Mom. But my teacher attaches great importance to this exam. I'm afraid that my results will be subpar, so I plan to stay there to revise with my classmates. Well, Gloria frowned when she heard Nicole's explanation. If you're worried about your grades, you can still stay at home. I can get Stanley to come home and tutor you. There's no need for you to stay on campus. Nicole, her daughter, had just returned. They had not even really bonded with each other. Gloria would miss Nicole if Nicole lived in a dorm. Daniel could tell Gloria was feeling hard to let her go, so he nodded. Your mom is right, Nicole. If you stay on campus, what should your mother and I do when we miss you? Nicole started to feel bad as she realized how sincere her parents were. Her family treated her well, so she could not reject their kindness so decisively. She still had to consider their feelings when she made her decisions. Looking at his family rejecting the idea, Steve smiled, intrigued. He held his coffee mug and said, Dad, Mom, shouldn't you support Nicole for being hardworking? Stanley is a shy guy, how could he tutor Nicole? Stanley blushed at Steve's remark. I will tutor her. Do you even know how to tutor? Are you not afraid of girls anymore? Steve looked at Stanley in a playfully teasing manner. Stanley, who was teased, was not having it. I'm not afraid of Nicole. He was telling the truth. Although he disliked being around girls, he did not mind Nicole getting close to him. Oh? Now that's weird. Steve did not expect Nicole to be so special to Stanley. Come to think of it, everyone in this house has changed ever since Nicole's return, thought Steve. He sent Nicole a teasing gaze and said defeatedly, Sorry sis. I run out of ideas to help you. Nicole could not help but sigh silently as it seemed impossible for her to live on campus now. A voice came from the door when she was just about to give in. Nicole wants to stay on campus because of her studies. Isn't that a good thing? Being hardworking and ambitious are the attributes someone in the Riddle family should have. Daniel and the rest of the family stood up in shock when they saw Mr. Riddle Sr. Dad, it's still early, and you are here, Daniel added in his mind unannounced. Mr. Riddle Sr. waved and said, Mr. Ellison asked me to meet him today, so I plan to send Nicole to school on my way there. I didn't expect to hear all of you discussing whether she should stay on campus as soon as I got in. You want to send Nicole to school? Daniel looked at Gloria in shock. Mr. Riddle Sr. wanted to send Nicole to school personally. It was a treatment he had given to none of his grandchildren. At that moment, the brothers exchanged looks, eyes filled with admiration. On the other hand, Norah was about to explode with jealousy. The whole family treating me as invisible just now is one thing, but Grandpa having eyes for Nicole when he came is quite another. He even wants to send her off to school personally. When Norah thought about how Mr. Riddle Sr. insisted on sending her away while being so protective of Nicole, Norah's eyes started to burn with hatred. Then, Mr. Riddle Sr. took a seat at the other end of the long table and expressed his thoughts. I think it's a good idea for Nicole to stay on campus. Don't interfere with her decisions. Get the servants to pack her stuff. I'll talk to Mr. Ellison later. He will be very happy when he hears about Nicole staying on campus. Gloria was still reluctant to let her daughter stay on campus, but Daniel had been shooting her looks endlessly, signaling her to not go against Mr. Riddle Sr. So, Gloria could only make herself feel better by thinking, my sons excel in their academic performance, so Nicole should not be left behind. Seeing that Nicole would stay on campus, Samuel and Spencer looked at each other as they spoke in unison. Dad, Mom, don't worry. We'll take care of Nicole. Dad, Mom, I will often check up on Nicole. Stanley volunteered himself too, which was rare. For these reasons, Gloria was finally at ease. She felt less worried since Nicole would be staying on campus in the company of her 3 brothers. Deal. You have to take care of Nicole in school. If I ever hear about Nicole being bullied, just watch how I'll deal with you lads when you are home, said Daniel. Stanley smiled. Don't worry, Dad. No one could get close to Nicole now that the 3 of us are there. Samuel and Spencer nodded with an affirmative look. Mr. Riddle Sr. nodded with satisfaction while watching them reassure their parents. Since the issue was almost settled, he looked at Nicole. Have you had your breakfast, Nicole? Do you want to leave with me? Nicole found Mr. Riddle Sr. pleasant today. I had my breakfast already. She did not even want to take her breakfast anymore. You've only had a glass of milk, Nicole. Bring something else to eat. Gloria gave in to Nicole as she knew Nicole was happy. Sure. Nicole took a sandwich from the servant gleefully and was about to leave with Mr. Riddle Sr. Norah watched her and said with frustration, Wait for me, Grandpa. I want to go to school too. However, Mr. Riddle Sr. glanced over the plate of food in front of her and said, You haven't finished your breakfast, so you should follow your brother to school when you're done eating. Needless to say, Mr. Riddle Sr. only wanted to bring Nicole alone. Norah's expression immediately changed. Being rejected in front of her parents and brothers was just as painful as getting slapped on her face. After he was done speaking, Mr. Riddle Sr. did not bother about Norah anymore and left with Nicole instantly. When Nicole turned around, she swept her cold gaze across Norah, mocking her for not knowing her place. Norah was so angry that her eyes turned red that even Samuel thought she was going to cry with disappointment. Norah, we will leave with you in a while. Don't cry. Samuel tried to console her as he sensed that she was upset. Norah immediately bawled in response, It's okay. You already have Nicole. Everyone can just pay attention to her. I'll be fine. I can go to school by myself. She then took her bag and left with tears of disappointment in her eyes. Gloria saw that Norah had not even taken her breakfast, so she wanted to run after Norah. But Daniel pulled her back. Just let her be. She has to accept reality sooner or later. Though Daniel, too, could not bear to do so, it was only a matter of time. Norah would not feel as bad if she acknowledged the truth sooner. I've neglected Norah. Gloria was a little guilty. Samuel looked regretful as well. Let's treat Norah better from now on. After all, she has to leave soon, right? His remark had shaken everyone at the table. All of them had lost their appetite, except for Steve, who looked unbothered as he said rationally, We know she has to leave. That's exactly why we shouldn't give her so much to reminisce about. After all, the Riddle family doesn't owe her anything. Throughout the years, the Riddle family had provided her with the best life imaginable, so she was not mistreated in the slightest. Steve's words made everyone fall into their deep thoughts. His words do make sense. With Mr. Riddle Sr.'s support, Nicole was finally getting to stay on campus the next day, just as she wished. She got up early to pack her luggage. In fact, it was only a medium-sized duffel bag. She filled it with her clothes and daily necessities. Once she had packed everything carefully, she zipped up her bag and brought it downstairs. The Riddle family's car was already waiting for her outside the house. When Nicole opened the door, she realized that Stanley was already in the car. He greeted her with a smile as soon as he saw her. I'll bring you to school today since Spencer and Samuel stayed on campus yesterday. All right. Nicole nodded. It was best to be dropped off at school by one person as she did not want to create a scene. At that moment, Nicole's bag attracted Stanley's eyes. They had all stayed on campus before, but no matter how minimal they packed, they always needed a few pieces of luggage. As the heiress of the Riddle family, Nicole just brought a piece of small luggage and a backpack with her, which caused Stanley to frown. Is that all you're bringing over, sis? It's a hassle if I bring too many things. After speaking, Nicole threw her backpack on the car seat and sat down before taking a rest. Stanley saw that she did not talk much, so he swallowed his question. He just secretly took note that his sister was different from the other girls. She did not like having too many decorations and girly things. This type of little sister was a little cool, for whatever reason. The car drove steadily into Royal Creek Institute. When it reached the office building, Nicole alighted from the car and bid Stanley goodbye before heading to Ms. Emerson's office for some procedures. She strolled to Ms. Emerson's office. The moment she was about to knock on the door with her hand lifted, she heard someone talking in a sarcastic and unpleasant tone. "Ms. Emerson, I didn't expect someone your age to be this sly. You've been giving the director gifts, huh? I saw everything just now. That box of tea leaves is far from cheap. It's probably half of your monthly wage. Even if you want the title of good teacher, you shouldn't have made it so obvious." Nicole could tell that the voice belonged to Mr. Kennedy. Ms. Emerson pursed her lips in the office, feeling embarrassed. Mr. Kennedy had a backer. He was the school chairman's relative. With a backer and his seniority, he would always bully the new teachers. Mr. Ellison was strict about gifting in school, but Mr. Kennedy ignored it and sent the director plenty of expensive gifts to keep Ms. Emerson down, making the director displeased with her. Ms. Emerson was so resigned that she had to give the director gifts, but she did not expect to be seen by Mr. Kennedy. While listening to Mr. Kennedy's insults, Ms. Emerson parted her lips. But in the end, she said nothing, and her eyes started to tear up. Nicole pushed the door open right that instant. Ms. Emerson saw her and immediately lowered her head to fight back her tears as she said in a hurry, "Nicole, you're here to complete the procedure, right? I've already printed out the form. You just have to sign a few pages, that's all." Upon speaking, Ms. Emerson stood up and passed Nicole the documents. Nicole arched her brows as she heard Ms. Emerson's slightly hoarse voice. However, she remained silent and signed the papers. Ms. Emerson forced out a smile to Nicole and said, "There, put your things in your dormitory today. Mr. Ellison said that you can choose any dormitory you like." Nicole nodded indifferently and turned to the door. At that moment, Mr. Kennedy had made himself some tea as he walked out with a mug filled with hot water. The doorway was narrow, and Mr. Kennedy expected Nicole to make way for him. Unexpectedly, Nicole did not see him and barged out the door. Mr. Kennedy's hot tea spilled onto his body within seconds, including his bare arms and face. "Arg!" His cry echoed in the office. Nicole watched as Mr. Kennedy shrieked like a butchered animal and said coldly, "Sorry, I didn't see you walking here." "You didn't see me? Where are your eyes?" Mr. Kennedy yelled out of embarrassment, looking like he wanted to eat her alive. Nicole smiled instantly. Though it was just a faint smile, it was radiant. "What else could it be? Do I have to give you presents, Mr. Kennedy?" "What?" Mr. Kennedy was stunned as he had no idea what Nicole was talking about. "Mr. Kennedy, you were so angry just now. Shouldn't I give you presents as a token of apology?" Nicole's words made the people around them think of Ms. Emerson, whom Mr. Kennedy had just scolded. Everyone knew how the director of the department always had Ms. Emerson's back against the wall, so she probably had no choice but to give the director presents. Then, all of them started to look at Ms. Emerson with sympathy. Mr. Kennedy sensed what Nicole had implied and got livid. But he could not do anything to Nicole, so he just turned around and yelled at Ms. Emerson, "Look at the attitude of the student you teach." At that moment, Mr. Kennedy was not in the mood to mock Ms. Emerson anymore. He was so in pain that he had to look for some ointments back in the office. It was Ms. Emerson's first time seeing Mr. Kennedy getting so enraged by a student. She let out a laugh as she watched his disheveled self running away with tea leaves all over him. The sadness and grievance she got from his yelling had disappeared without a trace. It seemed like Nicole had helped her just now. Ms. Emerson felt a little guilty as she thought about how she did not like Nicole and was reluctant to have Nicole in her class last time. However, Nicole had already turned around and left the office, ignoring everyone's reaction. Ms. Emerson watched Nicole leave as she felt warm inside. After the morning class ended, Nicole got up and walked to the cafeteria as it was now lunchtime. She did not wait for Bradley and Lulu today. Though she was early, she could not help but knit her brows at the sight of the crowded cafeteria. Unbeknownst to her, a frown on her delicate face made her extra charming, awing many boys around her. Norah was sitting with her classmates as Celia shot her a look. "Your sister from the countryside is here." Norah turned around and saw how much of an eyesore Nicole was. She could not help but feel a little jealous. In order to draw the attention to herself, she fought back the upset feeling she had yesterday and waved to Nicole with a smile on her face. "Here, sis." The word sis stunned numerous people in an instant. Is Norah calling Nicole sis? No way, I heard that transfer student is from the countryside, no? Is she from the Riddle family as well? When Norah heard the discussions about Nicole, she could not help but put her nose in the air while looking at Nicole arrogantly. No matter how beautiful Nicole was, everyone would remember that she was from the countryside as long as they compared her to Norah. Subsequently, when everyone thought they knew the relationship between Norah and Nicole, Nicole looked away as if she did not see Norah. She then sat on an empty seat. Norah froze. Did this country bumpkin just ignore me? The people around them immediately said, Nicole doesn't seem to know Norah. True. Nicole is so pretty, while Norah just looks average. How could they be sisters? These remarks drifted into Norah's ears, and her face started to burn with embarrassment. I'm indeed not as pretty as Nicole. But how can they just ignore the fact that Nicole is a country bumpkin just because she's pretty? Celia could not stand it anymore as well. Don't waste your energy calling her here. She's just a country bumpkin. What right does she have to sit with us? That was when Norah started to feel better. She said pretentiously, I'm just worried about her. Nobody wants to approach her after knowing she's from the countryside. While Norah spoke, the cafeteria door opened, and someone yelled, Austin Woods is here. Everyone threw their grays in Nicole's direction as soon as they heard Austin was here. They all knew how Nicole had embarrassed Austin in the cafeteria last time, so they thought he wanted to make her pay today. Hence, they started to walk away, keeping a distance from Nicole. The boys wanting to hit on her were also terrified. Like the crowd, they ran away from her when they heard Austin's name. It did not take long before the space around Nicole was emptied, which made her stand out even more in the cafeteria. Norah was delighted when she saw that and thought, this is how a country bumpkin should be treated. Everyone should just treat her like a virus. Nicole even bluffed about Austin asking her to be his boss back then. I would like to see if she was telling the truth. Austin strutted into the cafeteria with his followers under hundreds of eyes. His gaze swept across the cafeteria sharply as if he was looking for someone. Suddenly, he caught sight of Nicole, and his eyes sparkled. He then strode toward her. The people all thought that Austin was going to show Nicole who was the boss, so they got their popcorn ready. Norah was also waiting for Austin to slap Nicole's face brutally. However, Austin stopped next to Nicole and greeted her. Hey boss. Everyone was stunned as they thought they had misheard him. Eventually, Austin's followers greeted her as well. Hey boss. We heard you were in the cafeteria, so we're here to make way for you. At that moment, everyone was in shock. All they could do was stare at Nicole in a daze. Did we hear it wrong? Did Austin address Nicole as his boss? Celia was also stunned as she looked at Norah, dumbfounded. Hey, what's going on here? Why did Austin address that country bumpkin as his boss? I have no idea too. Norah thought Nicole was telling the truth. Everything she said was real. The Woods family was a powerful and rich family in Northon, so Austin had been at the top of the pyramid in school for the past few years. He did not even back down when fighting the Finley brothers. But now he bowed to a country bumpkin. Norah could not help to be suspicious of Nicole's real identity. Everyone was in shock as well, but Nicole remained expressionless. She casually glanced at Austin and returned her gaze to the long queue at the window. Austin beamed the moment he saw her looking at him. You must be hungry, boss. I will get someone to bring you food. Austin volunteered himself. That was when Nicole finally looked at him directly. It's okay. She sounded indifferent. But Austin was already calling over his subordinate to get the best ribs in the cafeteria. He then happily went over and lined up to get Nicole some soup. Nicole did not reject him as she saw how determined he was. She then turned to find herself a seat and sat down. After all, she really did not like queuing up. Everyone looked as if they had seen a ghost when Nicole sat down, walking away with their plates hurriedly. Oh man, even Austin is calling her boss. How powerful is she? They dared not to offend her. When Nicole saw Austin lining up without bullying anyone, Her gaze was not as cold anymore. Austin was a tyrant in school. When had he ever lined up for food? At that moment, Austin was squeezing between the crowd for Nicole. It was so hot he was sweating like a pig. When he turned back and saw Nicole's gaze turn slightly warm, he was elated. He did not bother how sweaty he was and continued to line up to get Nicole some food. Everyone saw this bizarre scene. They were stupefied upon seeing Austin working himself to the bones to impress Nicole. Coincidentally, Gary and Rain went to the cafeteria for lunch as well. When they walked into the cafeteria and saw how Austin was treating Nicole, they were dumbfounded too. After Nicole rejected Austin, Rain thought Austin would harm Nicole out of anger and embarrassment. Rain did not expect Austin would ignore her, the beauty queen in school, and beg to be Nicole's follower instead. He had even made a big scene. How embarrassing. Jealousy flashed in Rain's eyes as she said sarcastically, "Nicole is from your class, right? She has only been here for a few days, and she's already acting like she's all that. Who knows what she'd become in the future?" Little did she know that Nicole had rejected Gary's offer to protect Nicole. Otherwise, she would be infuriated. Rain's remark did not get a response, so she wondered why and turned around. She noticed Gary staring at Nicole, who was not far from them. His eyes were intrigued. Gary felt that things had become more interesting since Nicole transferred to Royal Creek Institute. He initially thought that Nicole was a country girl who did not know her place, but he gradually realized that she was nothing like how he had pictured her. Nicole was incredibly skilled that she had even made Austin submit to her. Even her background was mysterious as there was completely no trace of her information on the internet. Excluding the fact that Gary did not perform very well in his academics as he rarely paid attention in class, he was, in fact, a well-known computer genius. He had personally searched for Nicole's information, but his efforts were vain. Gary could tell that Nicole was someone not ordinary. Standing next to him was Rain, who watched him staring at Nicole with desire in his eyes. She started to feel anxious. She had pursued Gary for a long time, but he had always been indifferent toward her. It was her first time seeing Gary looking at someone with such a gaze. Is Gary interested in Nicole? Rain thought, impossible. It took me a great deal of effort just to stand by Gary's side. I will never let anyone take my place away. Nicole finished eating in a short while. Austin wanted to follow her when he saw her standing up. But Nicole stopped him with a slight frown. Don't cross the line. Austin knew that he could not step over the boundary, so he left after bidding her goodbye. Celia was frustrated as she saw Nicole showing off like that. She's just a country girl, yet she has the audacity to enjoy the limelight. Is she trying to humiliate classy ladies like us? Norah saw that Celia was angry, so she chimed in, yeah, she's just a girl. How could she be the boss of the school alpha? She's too full of herself. Celia got even angrier with Norah's remark. People like her deserve to be punished. Don't be impulsive. What if Austin backs her? Celia scoffed. The Rowe family isn't someone to mess with. Just you wait. At that moment, Nicole was done with her food and was about to leave the cafeteria. However, a figure popped out with malicious intent the second she stood up and barged into her. Nicole's eyes were cold as she quickly swerved and avoided that person. Her movements were so fast that the people did not catch them. Ouch! A voice cried, and everyone looked in that direction. There Celia was, lying flat on the ground. When Celia saw how much attention Nicole was getting, Celia planned to bring along her leftover food on her plate and knock Nicole over to humiliate her in front of everybody. But Celia had never expected Nicole to be that agile to dodge her, causing her to be the one that was lying flat on the floor. Celia's palms were pressing onto her leftover food scattered around the ground. She looked utterly disheveled. Nicole had already seen through Celia's evil schemes, so she was looking at Celia's embarrassing state coldly from the side. Celia had fallen hard. She was struggling on the floor for a while before somebody helped her up. However, she glared at Nicole as soon as she got up. How could you be so cruel? You actually tripped me. When the people who did not catch what really happened heard what Celia said, they looked at Nicole with disdain as they condemned her in their hearts. She sure is acting differently now that she has Austin at her back. It did not take long for her to bully people, huh? Nicole was not bothered by their gaze and scoffed, "You don't have to point fingers at me here. There's a surveillance camera right in front of us. We'll know what exactly happened when we watch the footage later." Celia was brainless for trying to set Nicole up when there was a surveillance camera in front of them. She had even tried to twist the story because her plan failed. Nicole started to wonder if Celia was retarded. "What?" Celia was stunned, as she obviously did not expect a surveillance camera to be there. She only realized that Nicole was telling the truth when she looked up. Celia's eyes immediately fell on Norah, who was in the crowd. Norah's blood was boiling, as she did not expect Celia to be so stupid as well. But she still acted like she was protective of Celia as she went up to help her. "How are you? Are you okay?" "Of course I'm not okay. My knees are killing me." Celia had lost her momentum, but she still refused to let Nicole go. Norah noticed it. She looked at Nicole. "Nicole, no matter how you put it, Celia fell because of you. You should apologize to her." "Apologize?" Nicole smirked coldly. Her smile was evilly enchanting, so evil that it sent others shivers. "Does she deserve it?" Nicole did not have the habit of apologizing to people, let alone apologizing to someone as petty and despicable as Celia. "What did you say?" Celia was so angered that she almost charged at Nicole. "We'll know who should apologize after we check the surveillance camera. Go to the central control room with me if you have the guts." Nicole looked at Celia and Norah with disdain, her eyes filled with disgust. The people saw how firm Nicole was, so they started to look at Celia with doubt. Celia was growing more diffident under the eyes of the crowd. How would she even go to the central control room? She obviously had ulterior motives, so the surveillance camera would definitely catch her act in high definition. She had no choice but to yell nervously, "Why should I listen to whatever you say? I don't have time to play around with you. You're just an ill-bred country bumpkin. Do you think I care about your apology? We'll wait and see." Celia was so exasperated that she was shouting at Nicole. But Nicole's eyes turned icy cold all of a sudden. "Who are you calling ill-bred?" Nicole had a void of regret within her after being separated from her biological parents for such a long time. She could tolerate anything other than being called ill-bred. No one could call her that. Of course Celia did not get to say the word "you," but she had already fallen silent just from being stared down by Nicole. In a split second, she actually felt that Nicole would kill her if she continued the whole sentence. That was a frightening gaze. Norah could not help but gulp as she had also seen Nicole's eyes. She then mustered her courage to ease the tension. "Nicole," Celia lost control of her words because she was too angry. "Don't mind her. I'll leave with her now." Norah only wanted to get away from this matter at that moment, so she did not bring up the central control room. The crowd watched their reactions, so how could they not know what was happening? The tables have turned, and everyone found Celia, who went for wool and came home shorn, utterly shameless. Celia saw them looking at her with their mocking eyes and wanted to say something. But she was really scared of Nicole's gaze, so she could only leave dispiritedly. Nicole only stopped looking when the both of them left solemnly. She would have slapped Celia in the face if it weren't for her principle of not hitting women. However, Nicole still had a long way to go. So she might get her back for this in the future. At that moment, Lulu and Bradley appeared out of nowhere and spoke to Nicole. "Nicole, you're so cool." Celia was the most overbearing girl in Class A, and Nicole had actually shaken her just by looking at her. "Though you're cool, Celia is a very vindictive person." Lulu looked at Nicole worriedly. Even though the Rowe family was not on the same level as the Riddle family or the Woods family, they were still the top family in the city. Nicole had just humiliated Celia, so Celia might get revenge on her. Nicole saw through Lulu. While clearing her food tray, she said, "She can't do anything to me, don't worry." Lulu was relieved when she heard that and gave Nicole a sweet smile. "Okay, you're the best, Nicole." After they were done eating, the three of them went back to class. It was Ms. Emerson's class in the afternoon. Nicole did not do her night revision last night, so she was expecting Ms. Emerson to lecture her. However, Ms. Emerson only smiled at her without saying anything else. Nicole thought about what happened this morning and understood that Ms. Emerson was thankful for her. However, She did it just because she could not stand watching Mr. Kennedy bullying people. She did not expect to get Ms. Emerson's liking, but the feeling was not bad either. Nicole listened in class in peace, unaware that the video where Austin addressed her as her boss was uploaded to the school forum. That post had gotten thousands of engagements and comments. Most of them questioned the authenticity of the video. After all, Austin was known for not submitting to anyone. How could he possibly address Nicole, who had beaten him up before, his boss? But as there were many eyewitnesses in the cafeteria during that incident, the doubtful comments were immediately taken over by people discussing Nicole's family background. After all, there were not many people who could make Austin yield in San Joto. However, Nicole's online identity was protected so well that none of them managed to dig out anything about her. The school's computer geniuses suspected that Nicole came from a powerful background. At that moment, Nicole was clueless about the dramas on the internet. She packed her stuff after the class ended and was about to head to Royal Creek Institute's dormitory to have a look. Coincidentally, Bradley also lived on campus. So, the both of them agreed to walk back together, and Bradley would take Nicole to her dormitory. The senior students were all living at Mirestone, and every dorm had 3 rooms. Since the students who studied at Royal Creek Institute were all from notable families in San Joto, the school would not snub them as well, so the facilities in the dorm were all of the top quality. Nicole walked slowly with her bag as she listened to Bradley introduce the dormitory areas to her. Suddenly, Nicole frowned as they walked to a secluded area. Her sharp senses were telling her that something was not right about that place. But when Nicole saw Bradley walking forward mindlessly, she hurried and walked by his side. If there was any danger, Nicole would bear the brunt. As expected, a gang of people surrounded Nicole when they walked past a corner. "Are you Nicole?" The pack leader looked fierce as his gaze traveled from Nicole's head to her toes. "That's me," Nicole immediately admitted fearlessly. "Nicole," Bradley felt a headache as he thought, "does this lady know when to be afraid? Hold her down." The leader seemed to know about Nicole's skills as he immediately got 2 of his lackeys to pin Nicole down. As for him, he had a wooden rod in his hand and was about to use it to hit Nicole. Seeing that Nicole was in danger, Bradley pushed her subconsciously, "Run." Then, he gritted his teeth and rushed forward to defend Nicole. He had the urge to snatch away that man's wooden stick. However, his thin and small body did not help at all. Instead, he was sent flying with just 1 kick from the other party. Where did this nerd come from? "Get out. Don't get in the way of my business." Jack, Wayne, and Gary happened to witness everything from afar. Jack exclaimed, "Isn't that Kane Fletcher from Northern Institute next door? Didn't he get a beating from Gary and beg for mercy? How dare he appear at our school?" "Gary, look. The person surrounded by Kane's men, isn't that Nicole?" Gary saw it too. He looked at Kane with eyes full of annoyance. The Royal Creek Institute's high school department was Gary's territory. It was as if Kane did not receive enough beating previously that he dared to mess with Gary's territory. Wayne, on the other hand, although he never liked Nicole, had never approved of bullying girls. Seeing Kane bullying her, Wayne rolled up his sleeves, wanting to confront them. "Gary, Nicole is still a girl no matter the circumstances. These bastards are acting so ruthlessly that they dare to bully a lady. Let's go and show them what's right or wrong." But before Gary said anything, he noticed Nicole staring coldly at Kane. A glint of coldness flashed in Nicole's eyes as she saw Bradley being kicked. She performed a roundhouse kick and knocked off the man trying to catch her from behind. Then, she ran to Bradley and helped him up. "Are you okay?" asked Nicole softly. Bradley's lips parted. He wanted to say that he was fine and that she had nothing to worry about. But the excruciating pain from his belly changed his expression. When Nicole saw his expression, she knew that he had suffered a major wound. She turned and shot Kane an icy glare. Those who knew her would know that it was a sign of her raging anger. Nicole stared at Kane. "Who are you? Why are you causing a scene here?" Her tone was frosty. Surprisingly, Kane was somewhat intimidated by Nicole's current expression. He had never felt so when facing anyone except Gary. "This girl is alone while I have so many men with me. Why should I be scared?" He looked at Nicole and gave her a wicked smile. You bullied the precious daughter of the Rowe family, and yet you dare to ask why we're here? Do you know who Celia's protectors are? It turned out that Celia had deployed these hooligans to seek revenge on her behalf. Nicole sneered. Oh? I was wondering where she had the guts to be loud this afternoon. So, I see she has a gangster backing her. I only know that the Royal Creek Institute's high school department is under Gary's territory. What place do you have here? Kane had always hated it when people compared him to Gary. His history of being put on his knees while confronting Gary was the biggest shame of his life. He looked at Nicole and spewed a few words through his gritted teeth. Everyone. Charge. Give her a good beating. Gary, who was nearby, felt that Nicole was not someone ordinary. He raised his eyebrows and stood still to observe the situation. Upon seeing Nicole in danger, Wayne wanted to rush forward and help her, but Jack stopped him. Hey, why are you in such a rush? Didn't you see that Gary hasn't made any move? Jack signaled with his lips. There was nothing Wayne could do. As long as Gary did not take the first step, he would not dare to act rashly. Therefore, he could only watch Nicole worriedly. Looking at the men swinging their batons, Nicole did not twitch at all. She ordered Bradley, run. Quickly. She did not even bother to turn her head. Bradley saw the bunch of thugs approaching them with stares, feeling frightened. He bore the pain and pulled Nicole as he ran while shouting, Nicole, are you stupid? There are so many of them. Are you waiting to get beaten up by staying there? No matter how powerful you are, you can't fight all of them alone. Nicole saw that Bradley was limping in pain, yet he did not forget to drag her along to escape. Her eyes became deep with emotion. The men behind them sped up their steps when they realized that both of them were fleeing. Bradley felt that he was slowing Nicole down. Just as he wanted to let go of her hand and ask her to leave him behind, Nicole let go of his hand and turned back. Bradley looked back dumbfoundedly. After throwing the luggage onto the ground, Nicole rushed to the thugs. She tilted her head slightly and signaled them to come at her. Like lightning, she dashed past through the middle of the gang. The thugs quickly raised their batons, wanting to attack Nicole. Yet, before they could act, each of them was sent flying by Nicole with a kick. They were all lying on the ground while clutching their stomachs, especially Kane. He had been elbowed and punched before Nicole sent him a final flying kick. An unrefined hooligan like Kane was no match to Nicole's skill and speed. As a result, Kane, who had been sent flying to the ground, fainted from all the pain. Nicole withdrew her legs and stood there quietly. All she saw were weak opponents lying all over the ground. The wind blew and lifted her locks. Her face was beaming with beauty and a heroic charm. Bradley was stunned by that sight. It took him a while to realize that Nicole was taking revenge for him. Not only Bradley, Gary and the two boys who witnessed it were also stunned. They had always known that Nicole was skillful but did not know she was at this level. She could actually fight more than 10 men all alone. Wayne could not help but exclaim, Nicole is so OP. Is she even a human? There were also mixed feelings in Jack's eyes. He casually asked, Gary, even you could not defeat Nicole, right? No wonder she said she didn't need your protection. She's actually this tough. They did not receive any response from Gary, so they turned to look at him. Gary, who was usually insouciant, was frozen with his gaze fixated on Nicole. It was as if he was stunned by her. Jack was startled for a moment. Then, he teased Gary. Gary, are you fascinated by her? It was only then Gary came to his senses. Although he heard what Jack said, he did not bother to refute him. It seemed like Nicole did not need his help at all. At the thought of this, Gary's eyes tainted with ambivalence. He turned around and spoke to the two of them, let's go. Nicole did not notice the three of them leaving. She was looking down at those thugs with furrowed brows. These boys are so incompetent. They are far inferior to the robot soldiers I trained, yet they have the balls to bully others. Nicole stopped thinking about these. She walked to the side to pick up her bag and then carried Bradley, who was still in shock. She was going to send him to the hospital. After that day's chaos, Nicole was not in the mood to go for dorm viewing. She planned to head back to the Riddle family's residence instead. She whipped out her phone and called the Riddle family's driver to send them to the hospital. Nicole was still supporting Bradley. It was only when they had arrived at the school's entrance that he managed to take a breather. He spoke with difficulty. "Nicole, thank you for avenging me. But you're really good. None of them could defeat you." Bradley sounded excited as he spoke. Nicole smiled indifferently. Bradley suffered because of her, so she would not let his suffering be in vain. As the two were chatting, the driver arrived. He was surprised to see Nicole looking shabby, but he did not comment or ask about it. Instead, he sent them to the best hospital in San Joto. During the consultation, Bradley was very reserved as he had never been to such a top-tier hospital. On the other hand, Nicole was expressionless. All she wanted was for Bradley to recover as soon as possible. He was such a bookworm. She hoped his injuries would not affect his revision for the upcoming test. Bradley saw that Nicole did not blink while she was paying the whopping medical bills. Then, he looked at the Riddle family's driver who was running up and down. It was at that point that he realized Nicole's family background was not simple. After the doctor left, Bradley pulled Nicole's sleeve and said sorrowfully, "Nicole, I'll definitely pay you back." Nicole knew that although Bradley came from the well-to-do Robertson family, he was the second son that was not loved. The pocket money his parents gave him was not much. Hence, he could not possibly have money to repay her. Furthermore, the thugs were here for Nicole. Bradley was only dragged into this mess because of her. Nicole gave him a reassuring smile. "I don't need you to repay me. Just make sure that your exam grades for this month are still at the top ranking." Seeing that she was serious about it, Bradley nodded vigorously. "I will definitely work hard for it." The driver's eyes also widened in astonishment upon seeing Nicole pay for the expensive bills without hesitation. He could clearly see that the card Nicole used to make payment was not the gold card given by the Riddle family. Instead, it was a plain black card. As a driver for the Riddle family, he had witnessed all sorts of situations. With just a glance, he could tell it was a supreme black card. There were only 10 supreme black cards in the world. It had no spending limit and was also a status symbol. Those who managed to get their hands on it are of the world's top elites. Anyone in prestigious events would recognize the uniqueness of this black card. The hospital was the best in San Joto, and the doctor's respectful attitude proved that he was right about Nicole. The driver wiped off the sweat from his forehead and looked at Nicole with more respect. After sending Bradley back to school, Nicole ordered the driver to drive her back to the Riddle's residence. As soon as she stepped into the house, Gloria welcomed her with a hug. She examined her from head to toe. "I heard from Joe that you went to the hospital. Did you get hurt? Let me have a look." Daniel also stared at her nervously. A man like him was not capable of carrying words, but the expression on his face said it all. Looking at how caring everyone was to her, Nicole felt warm inside her. She answered in a soft voice, "I'm fine. My classmate was hurt, so I brought him to the hospital. You guys have nothing to worry about." Realizing their dubious expression, she could not help but briefly explain the whole situation to them. It was only then that Gloria let loose. She turned around and looked at her sons standing in a row against the wall. It was obvious that Stanley rushed over. His collar was untidied. Spencer and Samuel seemed like they had just received a scolding. Their heads were lowered as they dared not to speak. Samuel noticed that Nicole was back. He gave her a slight wink. Nicole thought it was funny. She spotted Gloria, who was about to get angry again, so she pulled her arms. "I'm hungry." As soon as Gloria heard that her daughter was hungry, she did not bother to scold her sons. Instead, she quickly ordered the kitchen to prepare a meal. Samuel smiled at Nicole, full of gratitude. He had been listening to Gloria's nag the whole day. He could not bear another one. But seeing his expressionless sister, he felt a sense of guilt again. They failed to protect their own younger sister from bullies again. At the thought of this, he held Nicole's hands. "Nicole, it was my fault that I didn't take care of you. When I have the chance, I'll make sure to head to Northern Institute and avenge you," said Samuel. Spencer and Stanley nodded with serious looks on their faces. The thought of Kane causing a ruckus in Royal Creek Institute angered them. Luckily, Nicole was skillful enough to escape from them. Nicole's explanation was brief, so they eventually thought that Nicole and Bradley had to go through many hurdles to escape. Looking at them, Nicole could not help but let out a smile. She was touched by them. At that moment, the meal was served. Gloria looked at Nicole. "You must have used up all your energy already. Didn't you say you were hungry? Hurry, eat up," she said gently. Nicole nodded and picked up her spoon to help herself with the steamed fish in front of her. Upon seeing this, Gloria laughed and spoke to Daniel. "Nicole is just like you. She likes fish too." Daniel looked at her and smiled. Just like that, everyone was happily sitting around the table for a meal as one big family. The past 2 days, Norah had been hanging out with Celia and the rest with the excuse of being angry. She had not been having dinner at home. Although Gloria was worried, she could not bear to say much on the phone. So, she could only remind her to get home earlier. Yet, it turned out that Norah's absence brought the family together harmoniously. Since Nicole was going to stay in school from the next day onwards, Gloria had prepared a delicious feast. Samuel loved Gloria's steak the most. That day, a piece of black pepper steak was placed right in front of him. He devoured it happily, and his face was filled with sauce stain. Spencer, who was sitting next to Samuel, watched him eating messily. He said in disgust, "Look at you, eating like a wolf. Don't ever tell others that you're my brother." Samuel stared at him in disapproval. But the steak filled up his mouth that he could not refute Spencer properly. He could only mumble a reply, "Don't want you mmphb my mther." He was trying to say, "I don't want you to be my brother either." Everyone was amused by his reply and started laughing. The Riddle family had a good time at dinner. After dinner, Nicole returned to her room and took out the laptop from her bag. She had installed and run the cleaning program for 1 day and 1 night. It should be enough to remove all the tracking codes. Nicole switched on the laptop and continued her mission. She ran her own monitoring program, and it was a success. She could see the company's accounts. As expected, there are many issues with this company's accounts. Most were deficits caused by corruption. Looking at those numbers in red, Nicole quickly completed her mission and waited for the other party to transfer her the money. As soon as she submitted her task, she received a notification on her phone in the next few seconds. Nicole raised her brows, wondering if they were monitoring her progress because they could respond in such a short time. Thinking of this, Nicole felt the shivers. Her fingers quickly ran through her keyboard. She wanted to investigate the background of the company that gave her the task. Nicole was staring at the flashing pages on her computer. As expected, it was just a dummy corporation. There was no actual information to be found. Nicole's face turned grave. She was very sure that the other party was trying to trap her by making her take on this task just to get her IP address. All of a sudden, she remembered a $10 million warrant on the hunters. They might have used a lot of methods but failed to track her down. So, they resorted to such a method to trap her. A glint of cold light flashed past Nicole's eyes. Since they could set a trap to trick her, she could do the same. It was too early to determine who the hunter was. She quickly logged out of that account and created a new one to log into the hunters again. Looking at the warrant pinned on top of the page, she immediately took on the task without hesitation. Once someone took on the task, the other party would definitely make an appearance to inform them about the target and requirements of the task. As long as Nicole got a chance to be in contact with them, she could find a flaw and track them down. After a minute, Nicole received a message from them. She clicked on the conversation. It showed that the target of the task was a top hacker going by the name Lucifer. The requirements were simple: investigate the hacker's personal information in real life. Nicole stared at those cold words blankly. She frowned a little, typed a few words, and pressed send. "Do you have more leads? It's difficult for me to proceed with such little information." The other party replied instantly, "Sorry, I don't have the information you need." Nicole looked at this sentence and thought for a moment, then what is the deadline? The same reply came with the same speed. Scanned with CamScanner at that point, Nicole immediately understood that it was a system reply. She was not speaking to an actual human. This totally wiped off any possibility for her to find out the IP address of the other party. Facing such a cunning and cautious opponent, Nicole frowned. She had quite many enemies, but only a few could reach this level. She ran through a few possible names in her head but ruled them out. Who could it be? Carrying these questions in her head, she slept off. The next day, Nicole seemed distracted during her morning running and martial arts training. Even Samuel, who invited her to the run, was left behind. Nicole only realized that upon reaching home. But since she had finished the route, Nicole did some simple stretching before heading downstairs for breakfast. No one knew when Norah had come home the night before. That morning, she was seated with Spencer at one side while waiting for Nicole to have breakfast together. After a while, Samuel came home out of breath. He quickly rushed to the table and drank a few sips of water. Then, he complained to Nicole, "Nicole, you ran too fast. I feel like running with you is so much more tiring than training with my coach for a day." It seemed like he had made a reckless decision that morning. He did not expect his sister, with martial art talent, to be an athlete. Spencer thought he was exaggerating, so he mocked him, "Even a girl can run faster than you. Shouldn't you admit that you're too weak for a guy?" When Samuel heard him, his eyes widened, showing dissatisfaction. "If you have the guts, you should try running with Nicole for once. I bet you can't even finish one lap." That morning was the day when Samuel understood Nicole's ability. Even a basketball player who had been going for daily morning runs like him could not catch up with her. He exclaimed at the level of her running speed. Spencer continued to sneer, "I don't mind trying. I'm definitely better than you." Seeing that the two brothers are about to get into a fight, Stanley said, "Enough. Nicole is still waiting for us to begin the meal. Aren't we sending her off to school today? We'll have to leave earlier." As soon as Samuel and Spencer heard this, they stopped arguing and sat down to eat. Norah felt jealous that Nicole received so much attention for just staying in school. In Norah's eyes, Nicole did not pester to go to school for her grades but to spend more time with the brothers and take away all the love and attention from Norah. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Norah could not help but say, "Mom, all of them are staying on campus. I'm left alone at home. I want to stay on campus too." At this, everyone was stunned. Samuel asked naively, "Norah, didn't you say that the environment in school wasn't great, so you didn't want to go with us?" They had asked her before while they were staying in school. That time, Norah was strongly against it. He wondered what had happened to her. Norah sobbed. "Last time, I was scared of my classmates bullying me. But now I've already gotten to know them, and I want to get closer to all of you. Furthermore, if I stay at school, I can take care of Nicole. After all, I've been at the Royal Creek Institute longer, so I'm more familiar with the place." Hearing this, Daniel agreed. "I think you're right." Then, he looked at Gloria immediately. "Why not let Norah stay in school too?" Gloria hesitated for a moment. She felt that Daniel had a hidden agenda, but she nodded, "All right, I'll ask the family butler to pack her things." As she was speaking, Gloria walked up the stairs. Norah was a little stunned by what had just happened. What's going on? Previously, when Nicole wanted to stay in school, the Riddles were reluctant. Now that it was her turn, they did not give it a second thought. It was as if they were waiting for this day to come. At that moment, Norah slightly regretted her request to stay on campus. Could it be that I will never have the chance to move back in after leaving? But word was already out. Norah could only take a bet. At least now, Samuel still treated her sincerely. Her parents did not love her the same as before, so she should at least retain her brother's love and attention. As these thoughts were going through her head, she had a firmer look in her eyes. She went upstairs to pack her things after taking a few bites. When Nicole and the rest finished breakfast, they saw Norah bring down a few pieces of luggage. Spencer was shocked upon seeing her luggage. "Norah, why are you bringing so many bags? Are you planning to have a vacation at school?" he asked. The moment Stanley looked at Norah's belongings as high as a mountain, he could not help but laugh. Compared to Nicole, who had only brought one duffel bag, Norah's luggage was way too much. Norah felt awkward by their reactions and blushed. "I'm not. It's just that I saw Nicole bringing so little things. I'm worried she might need some stuff, so I packed many things." Deep down, she knew that all of it was her favorite clothing. There were quite a lot more which she had not put in yet. After she said that, everyone looked at her in shock. It was unexpected that Norah could be this thoughtful. Nicole noticed that Norah was using her as an excuse. She looked at Norah with a smile. Norah, thank you for being so thoughtful. But I'm not used to using other people's belongings. You can put it back. This reply stunned Norah. She could feel her face raging in flames. But everyone was staring at her. She could only reply awkwardly, all right then. Alfred, bring these 2 bags back upstairs. She could only leave her 2 bags behind reluctantly. We're almost running late. Let's go. I don't want to be late to school for such a trivial matter. Nicole glanced at Norah and turned around. Nicole, wait for me. Spencer followed her while Stanley quietly put on his school uniform and left with them. Samuel was the only one who stayed and helped Norah with her luggage. Gloria walked them out. Nicole took the passenger's seat while the 3 boys took the back seat. Norah was awkwardly left behind. Spencer, Samuel, where should I sit? Gloria saw this and quickly said, Norah, you have a lot of bags. I'll let Joe drive another car and send you to the dormitory instead. Ha! Norah almost broke down. But Samuel and Spencer did not notice that. Norah, we're leaving now. Sam, Norah tried to speak, but the car had already driven off. She could only sit in that unglamorous and old car alone to school. Norah, if anything happens in school, don't forget to call me, said Gloria with a warm smile. All right. Norah forced a smile. But deep down, her hatred against Nicole deeper. Just wait and see. I will take back the love and attention from my brothers. Soon Nicole and the boys' car arrived at school first. Because of what happened the day before, Samuel and Spencer were worried that someone would bully Nicole again. Throughout the journey, they had been asking Nicole to let them accompany her to school. The boys did not leave until she had chosen her room and settled in. Nicole only went to the classroom when it was almost time for class. In class, Bradley was excitedly describing Nicole's heroic act to Lulu. When he reached the part where Nicole could defeat more than 10 men alone, he was practically dancing. He even stood up and mimicked all her moves, which made his story interesting. Lulu was very entertained by his story too. As Nicole walked in, she saw Bradley standing on the bench and acting in front of Lulu. So, he must have recovered already. Bradley and Lulu quickly rushed to her side the moment they saw her. Lulu broke the silence. Nicole, I've heard about what happened yesterday from Bradley. How did you do it? I've only seen one fighting dozens of people in movies. Bradley added, I wasn't lying. Nicole really did defeat all of them alone. Especially Kane, he got beaten so hard that he could not even stand. Don't even mention the embarrassment.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.